Mr. Glenzer, I know that, I'm going to start with you, because I know that you were at the table for a lot of these the negotiations going on with Cummins and others. So perhaps you want to start off and talk about that, or what other accomplishments that you could look back at and be proud of.
Well, if I have to stick to my accomplishments, it'll be a very short speech. I enjoyed being county executive. You have to be a masochist to decide to run. But it is a rewarding job. You know, I look back, I remember one day Sam Thorndike, who had a PhD in economics, but the interpersonal talents of a three-toed sloth, he hated to run a meeting. If I told him he was going to have to take my place, he would shake like a leaf in the fall. But he came to me one day, he said, Dr. Glenzer, let me show you something. He said, our average home care visit, and he had it down to the penny, was $77 and some odd cents. And he said, the Jamestown Visiting Nurses Association, which had an excellent reputation, theirs is only $27. I said, Sam, that's simple. I'm taking us out of home health care. Well, let me tell you, when you try to make a change, it's not easy. I had those angels of mercies were wheeling these old ladies in, and they were all pointing at me, saying that because of that fat, ugly old guy, you're not going to get good service. Now, I wouldn't have done this if I didn't know that we had a combination of equally, if not better service. You know, one of those nurses, I don't tell this story, but it's true, told those old ladies that we give you better care because we make more money. Now, somewhere there was a gap in that logic, which you don't have to be an expert. But anyway, that first year we saved $350,000, and people got good care. In fact, when I had a problem later in my life, I used the JB&A. They've changed hands, but they still give excellent service. And you know, all of us have been blessed by having staff. Maybe there's some exceptions, but we had very qualified staff. And George Riedesel was an excellent director of DPW, and he installed what they call this non-destructive testing, where they used what they did when they were looking for oil. They pound the highways, so like in that stretch when you're going into Stockton, where it winds down through, they were able to just tear up the sections that were bad instead of tearing it all up. And so that saved the county a lot of money. And every morning, or every Friday morning at 8 o'clock, I met with George Riedesel because he knew everything and I knew next to nothing, but I didn't want to maintain the status quo. And I learned it. In fact, George and I to this day are friends. I got a lot of support. I had talented, well, we hired Mr. Goodell here, our representative. And I have to say this, over the years, and then I'll give up some time here. Over the years, I've been very, very proud that the county legislature, regardless of who was in charge, is one of the last vestiges of civility in government. You know, you look, I was very proud when the Republicans with like a 14-5 majority appointed a Democrat, Mr. Navarro, because he was best qualified. Normally in politics that doesn't happen because, you know, I don't know what being a chairman pays now, but it pays extra. But, you know, our legislature had the foresight and put the good of the county ahead of politics, and they made Mr. Navarro, who I don't know, I mean, except from the papers. But I knew that he was the best qualified, and so I continue to be very proud of the fact that Chautauqua County Legislature and government represents our people well without embarrassing anybody. Thank you. Over my career in politics, one of the things that blessed me was the number of people that for nothing other than wanting to try to make the county a better place, and not everybody agrees that elected me as county executive did that, but at least people came out of the woodwork and helped me. I remember Mike Sullivan, who's now a judge, called me for my first campaign. He said, "I'm just getting out of law school. I want to work on your campaign." And of course, then he has worked his way up to being a judge. All in all, I have to say this: being county executive is hard work. I think you owe all of these guys, maybe not me, but these guys, thanks for, when you're county executive, if you have any sense of responsibility at all, it's a hell of a hard job, but it's gratifying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Glenzer. Thank you very much. Assemblyman Goodell, I know you talked about the fund balance that you increased from 500,000 to over 18 million in the Economic Development Fund you created, cutting county taxes. Do you want to talk about some of those accomplishments?
As you may have figured out from the lineup here, I follow Jack Glenzer. And
I had to talk you into it.
And so Jack, I'm sure, has long since forgotten this, but when I was running, he said, "Andy, I've got good news and bad news for you. This is when I'm running." He said, "I'm presenting a budget that's going to have a tax cut. That's going to be a great help for you. The bad news is you're going to have to figure out the budget when you get in."
Joe Gerasi, I have used Joe as an example. So many people think that people only get into politics for what they can get out of it for themselves. And young Joe told me one time that his dad called him and said, "Joe, this is when Joe was thinking about running for county executive." And as you know, Joe is a very successful attorney. And he said, "If I run for this and I win, I'm not going to be able to afford to send you to the kind of schools I sent your sister Andrea to." And, one time Joe and I were on the radio with Jim Rosselli talking about what it's like to be county executive. At the time, I was having a back problem. Well, about a week later, I get this manila envelope with a thick sheet of papers full of back exercises because his wife Mary was having back problems. So Joe Xeroxed all that stuff and sent it to me. Joe is an outstanding example of someone that was so loved Chautauqua County, and he was a very, very good. I'll tell you this: if he had been appointed to the governor's cabinet, I never would have run, because who the hell was going to beat him? Certainly not me. He was the best. And by the way, if you look around the room, you'll find that although we're all different, we all had the same trait, and that is that we were smart enough to marry someone. And if you knew my late wife, you know this is true. We all married someone smarter and a hell of a lot better looking. Thank you.
And my wife would agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Yes, thanks, John.